All stories are dramatized recreations. Named locations are fictionalized. Any resemblance to real persons is coincidental.
Hi, I'm Riley, a 37-year-old medic from TX. Sharing this is hard, but I need to process how my husband David's random hookups shattered our 12-year marriage. It began when I found hotel receipts in his gym bag places he'd claimed were work trips. The worst was discovering lipstick on his collar that wasn't mine. Cherry red, cheap, and smudged like a guilty secret. I'd stitch wounds all day in the year, then come home to sterile silence. Austin's skyline would blur through our loft window while I traced cracks in our wedding photo frame. Some nights, I'd drive past 6th Street's neon signs, wondering if he was in those crowds, laughing with strangers while I replayed voicemails of his fake apologies. The final fracture came when I walked into our garage that Tuesday evening, supposedly empty since David texted, "Working late, don't wait up." His car sat there, fogged windows trembling with movement. I remember the smell oil stains and cheap perfume as my keys clattered to the concrete. Through the windshield, I saw her tangled in his arms, cherry red hair spilling over our camping gear. I didn't scream, didn't throw open the door, just stood there counting heartbeats. 1, 2, 3, until David's head snapped toward me, eyes wide like a spooked deer's. That split second before recognition hit, that's what haunts me most. How easily I became a ghost in my own home. I backed away silently, heels echoing in the empty driveway. David scrambled out half-dressed, shouting apologies that dissolved in the humid Texas air. "It meant nothing, Riley, just stress." His words were moths batting against glass. Frantic, useless. I drove for hours, past Austin's glittering bridges and darkened parks, until sunrise bled over the hill country. Stopped at a gas station, bought black coffee, and watched my wedding ring catch the light. The barista asked if I was okay, said I looked. Rode hard and put away wet. I almost laughed, almost. At the next morning, I sutured a construction worker's sliced palm methodical stitches while my intern chattered about Tinder dates. Every pull of the needle felt like rewiring my own nerves. David bombarded my phone and 17 missed calls, 23 texts, pleading mixed with rage. "You didn't even fight for us," he wrote. Truth was, I'd fought for years, played detective with credit card statements, excused his late conferences, swallowed every "you're paranoid" gaslight. That garage was just autopsy confirmation. By noon, I booked a week at the Magnolia Motel 59 night, peeling wallpaper scenting the sheets. Packed one suitcase, scrubs, running shoes, Dad's old flannel. Left his favorite mug shattered in the sink, ceramic shards spelling enough. When I handed my keys to Marta, our neighbor, her hug crushed me. "Ay, mija," she whispered. "Corazones rotos son imanes para nuevas estrellas." Broken hearts attract new stars. I didn't believe her. Not yet. That first night alone, I traced water stains on the motel ceiling, shapes like fractured continents. Thought about med school graduation day, when David pinned my MT badge on crooked. "My hero," he'd said. Now, I was just another triage case, hemorrhaging trust, vitals unstable. But somewhere between the thin pillows and highway drone, a resolve hardened. Not anger, just stillness. Like cauterizing a wound. I wouldn't trash talk him to friends. Wouldn't drunk dial. Would just be one breath, then the next, until the ache became background noise. Motel living became its own rhythm alarm at 5:45 a.m. Lukewarm coffee from the lobby, the hollow thump of my duffel bag hitting the passenger seat. Work became my sanctuary, the ear's fluorescent buzz drowning out memories. During a midnight trauma call, teenager wrapped around a guardrail, I snapped into triage mode. Pulse thready, prep O negative. My hands didn't shake as I intubated. Funny how saving others anchors you when your own life capsizes. Later, stripping off bloodied scrubs, I found David's old gym tag in my pocket, the one I'd meant to return months ago. Tossed it into biohazard with the gauze. He showed up Wednesday, loitering by the ambulance bay with wilted sunflowers. "We need to talk properly," he begged, shirt wrinkled like he'd slept in it. I kept walking, icy calm coating my veins. "Riley, please, one coffee?" His voice cracked. I paused, scanning his bloodshot eyes, the same look he'd give after benders early in our marriage. "You lost the right to my time when you fucked her in our garage," I said, each word measured as a medication dose. The flowers trembled in his grip. I'm staying at Mom's. Let's just serve the papers to my lawyer, I cut in. And next time, bring her. His flinch tasted like cheap victory. That weekend, Marta dragged me to her niece's quinceañera. Mariachi horns swelled in the community hall. Gold ribbons, laughing toddlers chasing balloons. I hid near the dessert table until Abuela Consuela cornered me. AIDO. Energía está nublada, she murmured, pressing a concha into my hand. Your energy's clouded. Her knobby finger tapped my sternum. Acqui, you let grief rot here. But light needs cracks to grow. Son, the sweetbread turned to ash in my mouth. Later, watching girls in ruffled dresses whirl, I realized David never danced with me. Not once. Monday brought a new intern, Ben, fresh-faced and eager. During a lull, he confessed nursing school almost broke him. Girlfriend cheated finals week? Found them in my dorm bed, he shrugged, sanitizing a gurney. Funny how betrayal smells like cheap body spray. Our laughter felt dangerous, like testing a healed fracture. He asked where I got my composure. Practice, I said, avoiding his earnest eyes, and knowing some wounds need air, not bandages. At the motel, I started running pre-dawn streets empty except for stray cats and bakery trucks. Pounded past murals of Willie Nelson, the Capitol's pink dome, letting footfalls sync with my pulse. One morning, I sprinted until my lungs burned, collapsing on Zilker Park's dew-soaked grass. Above me, hot air balloons bloomed, striped giants floating in apricot dawn. For the first time since the garage, I cried, not heaving sobs but quiet tears evaporating in the wind. No one watched, no one pitied. Just the earth holding me while the sky changed colors. I bought a cactus spiky little thing named Spike for the motel windowsill. Watered it with my leftover coffee. Funny how tending something thorny soothed me. Started journaling too, not about David but about Mrs. Henderson's stubborn recovery from pneumonia, how she'd wink stealing Jell-O cups. About the homeless man who thanked me for treating his frostbite by reciting Yeats. My world expanded in his absence, filling cracks with strangers' light. David's texts dwindled to logistics, mortgage payment due, your mom called. I replied with check marks. Silence became my shield. One evening, removing my wedding ring felt less like loss and more like unclenching a fist I'd held too long. Left it on the motel sink, a tiny silver O beside Spike's pot. That night, I slept 9 hours straight. Dreamt of stethoscopes blooming wildflowers. Woke to rain, tapping the roof, a sound like forgiveness. Paperwork became my new language. Sitting across from my lawyer, Linda, a steel-spined woman with kind eyes, I initialed pages with detached precision. Division of assets, spousal support waiver, exclusive use of marital home. David contested nothing. He's compliant, Linda noted carefully, sliding the decree across her polished desk. Rare in these cases. I traced the embossed letterhead petition for dissolution, feeling nothing but the AC's chill. Outside her rainy street office, Austin's food truck sent smoky tendrils into the air. I walked straight past them, the folder heavy as a body cast. Work saved me again. A multi-car pileup on I-35 flooded the ear-broken glass, sirens, the metallic scent of fear. I directed traffic between gurneys, my voice steady as I catalogued injuries. GSW to abdomen, room 3. Child with head trauma, stat TT. In the chaos, Ben appeared beside me, his calm presence an anchor. He didn't speak, just matched my pace-handing instruments, anticipating needs. Later, covered in someone else's blood, we leaned against the ambulance bay wall, sharing lukewarm vending machine coffee. You handled that like a battlefield general, he said quietly. Learned from the best, I deflected, but his smile felt like the first real warmth in months. The motel started suffocating me. I found a tiny cottage east of town, white clapboard, wildflowers strangling the fence. Moving day was just Marta, her pickup, and 3 boxes. No furniture, she laughed, hauling in my cactus. Freedom's lighter, I shrugged. That night, I slept on the floor in a sleeping bag, moonlight painting stripes across bare walls. Silence here felt different, not empty, but expectant, like the pause before a breath. David tried once more. A letter arrived, handwritten on our old stationery. Riley, I see you everywhere. The coffee shop I burned it unread in the sink, watching curling edges blacken. Ashes swirled like guilty ghosts down the drain. The hospital offered a wellness program. Combat burnout, the flyer chirped. I signed up for horticultural therapy, skeptical but desperate for non-blood-stained hands. Every Thursday, we knelt in the rooftop garden, nurses, orderlies, broken people tending seedlings. My assigned plot grew defiantly: purple coneflowers, stubborn rosemary, milkweed for migrating monarchs. Plants don't lie, murmured Gary, the Vietnam vet who ran the group. You nurture 'em right, they show up. Simple as that. I buried my hands in damp soil, grit under my nails, and felt something unclench behind my ribs. One rainy shift, Ben found me rewrapping a homeless man's ulcerated leg. Need help? He knelt without waiting, his fingers gentle as he secured the bandage. We walked out together, sharing an umbrella. He confessed he'd gone through his divorce eating cereal for dinner in the dark. The silence was the worst part. Like I'd become invisible. Rain slicked the pavement, reflecting neon signs. How do you stop feeling invisible? I asked. He paused. Started showing up for myself, even if it was just making scrambled eggs. I bought a table, one chair, set it by the cottage window where morning light pooled, made scrambled eggs with chives from my garden, ate them slowly, tasting each bite. The final hearing was anticlimactic. 10 minutes before a judge who never looked up from his screen. Marriage irretrievably broken. Decree granted. David stood across the aisle, gaunt in a suit that hung loose. I felt nothing. Not triumph, not sorrow. Just the weightlessness of a cast removed. Outside, autumn leaves skittered across the courthouse steps. He called my name, a question. I kept walking, the wind swallowing the sound. That weekend, Ben texted, "Hiking at McKinney Falls?" Heard the cedars are turning. My heart hammered, not from fear, but the thrill of a pulse returning to a numb limb. We walked under limestone cliffs, orange leaves catching in our hair. He pointed out turkey vultures circling, cleanup crew. Nature's reset button. At the waterfall, we stood watching brown water carve through ancient rock. No confessions, no touching. Just two people relearning how to occupy space without bleeding. Back home, I planted tulip bulbs along the fence line deep in the cold earth, waiting for spring. That night, I opened my journal to a fresh page. Wrote one sentence, I am here. Winter arrived gently in Austin-crisp mornings, frosting the wildgrass around my cottage, the cedar smell sharpening in the air. I'd wake early, wrap myself in Dad's flannel, and sip peppermint tea by the window. Spike the cactus thrived, defiantly green against the gray. Those quiet hours became sacred. No alarms, no sirens, just the scratch of my pen in the journal where I documented small victories, fixed leaky faucet. Memorized Ekeg rhythms. Didn't dream of him? Work shifted too. With the holidays came flu season, overcrowded waiting rooms, children's muffled cries, the relentless beep of monitors. During a particularly brutal shift, I supervised Ben through his first solo intubation. His hands trembled slightly, pressures dropping, he muttered. I steadied his wrist, guiding the tube. Slow. Follow the breath, not the panic. Later, over lukewarm pizza in the break room, he admitted it was his first life saved without supervision. Feels different, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. Like, proof I'm where I'm supposed to be. I nodded, recognizing that certainty, the same one stitching me back together, suture by suture. David faded to background static, a Christmas card from his mother, tossed unopened into recycling. Marta brought tamales on New Year's Eve, her grandkids tumbling through my sparse living room. You need a couch, mija, she scolded, handing me a plate. We sat on the floor, spicy steam warming our faces as fireworks popped distantly over downtown. Next year, I promised, nodding toward the empty corner. Big enough for all of us. The kids' laughter echoed off bare walls, and for once, the emptiness felt like potential. Ben texted in January ice skating at Whole Foods. They flood the rooftop. I hesitated, fingers hovering. Not a date. He'd said group thing, but still, my pulse flickered. We went, hospital interns bundled in scarves, wobbling on rented skates under string lights. Ben glided backward effortlessly, offering his hand. Trust me. The cold bit my cheeks as I gripped his mitten. Only if you promise not to sue for malpractice when I fall, I shot back. We didn't fall, just circled the rink, our breath fogging together under the stars. When he pulled me aside near the hot cocoa stand, I braced for awkwardness. Riley, but he just pointed upward. Look, A bald eagle soared over the city skyline, wings slicing the twilight. Bad omen? I joked weakly. Survivalist, he corrected. Adapting. My garden slept under frost, but I planned obsessively. Seed catalogs spread across the floor, circled entries for bluebonnets and firewheels. Gary from Horticultural Therapy gifted me worm castings. Spring's coming, Doc. Roots are working even when you can't see 'em. I believed him. Started running again, this time through my neighborhood, past porch swings and lemon trees, neighbors waving as they collected mail. One morning, an elderly man named Walter flagged me down. "You're the angel?" He rasped, thrusting a jar of honey into my hands. "For fixing my ticker." The sweetness lingered on my tongue all day. Valentine's Day arrived, pink teddy bears choking drugstore aisles. I treated a teenager with a broken wrist from skateboarding, her boyfriend clutching her other hand. "Romantic, huh?" She winced as I set the bone. "He'll remember this forever," I said, winking. Later, Ben appeared at the nurse's station with 2 coffees. "Anti-Valentine special," he announced, sliding one toward me. The cup sleeve read Riley in his blocky handwriting. No heart, just my name. We drank in comfortable silence, watching sleet streak the windows. "No plans tonight?" I asked casually. He shook his head, scrambled eggs, and Die Hard. Tradition. Bruce Willis counts as romance. He's dependable, then grinned. Never cheats. Our laughter tangled, warm, and unexpected. That night, I lit a single candle at my one-chair table. Made mushroom risotto, a recipe I'd bookmarked years ago but never attempted. Ate slowly, savoring the creamy richness. After, I opened the journal. Wrote, Walter's honey, Ben's coffee, eagle at sunset. 3 things that didn't hurt. Outside, wind chimes sang on my porch, a housewarming gift from Marta. I listened until the candle guttered out, darkness softening the room. In bed, I scrolled real estate listings, not for a couch, but a porch swing. Imagined summer evenings with books and iced tea. No frantic longing for what was lost. Just contentment, deep as a root. Spring announced itself with bluebonnets exploding along the roadside, electric carpets of blue that made my morning drives feel like gliding through a dream. The cottage transformed too. Tulips I'd planted last fall now stood at attention by the fence, their red heads nodding in the breeze. I'd sit on the porch steps with coffee, watching bees stumble drunkenly between blossoms. Spike had sprouted a tiny yellow flower overachiever, I whispered, brushing a fingertip over its thorns. This quiet pride was new, not tied to saving lives or vows kept, but to dirt and patience. The air's rhythm shifted with the season. Allergies replaced frostbite, skateboard fractures outpaced flu cases. During a hectic shift, a young bride stumbled in, her wedding dress smeared with dirt, clutching a swollen ankle. "Dance floor disaster," she groaned as I examined her. Ben wheeled over the ultrasound, his shoulder briefly warm against mine. "Gotta stop meeting like this, Riley," he murmured, maneuvering the probe. The bride watched us, tear-streaked mascara cracking into a smile. "You 2 married?" The question hung, sharp as shattered glass. "Just co-workers," Ben answered smoothly, but his eyes held mine a beat too long. After, he brought me cold water. "You okay?" "Why wouldn't I be?" "Because," he said softly, "anniversaries live in our bones." He remembered. 3 years ago today, David proposed. I drove to the lake after work. Not our old spot, but a rocky cove north of town. Threw stale bread to ducks as sunset bled across the water. "Hello, David," I whispered to the ripples. Not with anger, but the dull ache of a scar pressed too hard. A text chimed Ben, "Saw your car. Join me?" He emerged from a trail, holding 2 dripping Dr. Peppers. We sat on a boulder, condensation slicking our palms. "My divorce finalized today," he confessed, popping the tab. "Feels like failing a test I didn't study for." I clinked my can against his. Failing would have been staying. The silence that followed was comfortable, filled only by lapping waves and distant bullfrogs. When his pinky brushed mine, I didn't pull away. At home, I tackled the last box memories scrawled in David's handwriting. Inside, dried corsages, ski lift tickets, the velvet ring box. I emptied it into a donation bin except for one photo us at Enchanted Rock, 24 and sunburnt, his arms wrapped around my waist. Not for nostalgia, but proof I loved fiercely once. I can again. Slid it behind my MTTM certification frame, past and purpose sharing the same wall. Marta hosted a limpieza party spring cleaning meets exorcism. We scrubbed her patio furniture while Abuela Consuela burned sage, chanting, "Out with cold hearts." She ordered, smudging smoke over my head. Later, sprawled on freshly hosed concrete, Marta nudged me. "That Benji looks at you like pan dulce fresh from the oven." I flicked lemonade at her. "We're friends. Mija, even cacti bloom." He proved her right Thursday night. Found me restocking IV bags, shadows under my eyes from a double shift. Admiring the supply closet, he teased, then grew serious. "Got something for you." In his palm lay a smooth gray stone, dragon scale, he explained. "Found it at McKinney Falls. Thought it could guard your garden." The weight fit perfectly in my grip, still warm from his pocket. "Dragons hoard treasure," I said. "What's it protecting?" "Things that grow," he replied, and the air between us crackled. Sunday, I invited him over strictly plant-related. "Spike needs repotting," I insisted. We knelt on the porch, soil strewn around us. His hands, steady from suturing arteries, cradled the cactus roots gently. "Careful," I warned, "he bites." Ben laughed, a low rumble that vibrated through the floorboards. So do medics. When our fingers tangled in the dirt, neither moved away. He told me about his parents' farm, how his mom talked to tomatoes. "They thrived," he shrugged. "Maybe plants need love songs." I hummed Sinatra while patting soil around Spike's base. Ben joined in, off-key and earnest. "Fly me to the moon." After, we washed hands at the sink, elbows bumping. "Hungry?" I asked. We made omelets with chives from my garden, dancing around my tiny kitchen, a shuffle step avoiding collisions. No grand confession, just golden eggs, the radio's static, and his quiet perfect after the first bite. At the door, he paused. "Next Sunday, there's a meteor shower. Could watch it from my roof. Bringing Spike? Wouldn't dream of leaving him." His smile lingered like twilight. I watered the garden later, dragon scale tucked beneath Spike's pot. Moths circled the porch light, casting frantic shadows. For the first time in years, I didn't envy their pursuit of flames. Content instead with roots and steady ground. The night of the meteor shower, I stood paralyzed before my closet, jeans or sundress. "It's not a date," I told Spike, though I'd watered him twice from nerves. Settled on jeans and my favorite astronomy tea, nebulae or nothing. Ben's text glowed, roof access code 1985, blankets on the left. His building overlooked Lady Bird Lake, downtown's glittery necklace. I found him cross-legged on a faded quilt, telescope pointed skyward. "Perfect timing," he murmured as I settled beside him. "Perseids peak in 22." He handed me thermos, cocoa, cinnamon-laced, no cheap marshmallows. We sipped in silence as city hum faded beneath cricket song. When the first streak blazed silver overhead, I gasped. "Make a wish," Ben whispered. I closed my eyes. Let this not shatter, just as his knuckles brushed mine. "See Orion's belt?" He guided my finger-tracing constellations, calloused skin igniting goosebumps on my wrist. "My dad taught me these during chemo nights. Said stars outlive all our disasters." His quiet confession hung between us, raw as an open wound. I rested my head on his shoulder, tentative, testing gravity. His arm slid around me, anchoring. No meteors compared to that solid warmth. Work ruptured the peace next morning, mass fentanyl overdose at a downtown club. We raced through triage, tagging patients with colored tape. "Priority 1 here," Ben barked, intubating a twitching teen. I jammed Narcan into trembling thighs, counting seconds between doses. Between victims, our eyes met wordless coordination forged in rooftops in crisis. When the last stabilized, we leaned against a supply closet, adrenaline trembling through our gloves. "Breakfast?" he rasped. I nodded, too exhausted for pretense. Waffle House at dawn became sacrament, sticky syrup, crispy bacon, his foot nudging mine beneath the laminate table. "You okay?" he asked, watching me dissect my waffle. The overdose's chemical stench still haunted my scrubs. "Remembered David's first relapse," I admitted. "Found him seizing in our bathroom." Ben stilled. "How'd you?" "Called 911, held his hand. Believed his promises." I swirled coffee grounds at my cup's bottom. Funny, today felt like closing that door. his hand covered mine grease. Streaked, steady. Doors swing both ways, he said softly. New ones open. My garden erupted in May, crimson firewheels dancing with bluebonnets. Ben brought salvaged barn wood for planter boxes, hammering while I seeded basil. Farm boy skills finally useful, he grinned, sweat tracing his temple. We christened the boxes with Walter's honey-sweetened tea. When a bee stung my thumb, Ben sucked venom out without hesitation, spitting into rosemary bushes. Old remedy, he shrugged, wrapping my hand with his bandana. The throb felt like a heartbeat. Marta's cumpleaños party tested us, folding chairs, accordion music, her tia scrutinizing Ben as he flipped carne asada. ¿Quiero cooks? Abuela Consuela sniffed approvingly. He charmed them with terrible Spanish and perfect tortilla flipping technique. He's a keeper, Marta whispered, handing me diced mango. Treats you like La Virgen. I elbowed her, but my cheeks burned. Later, slow dancing to cumbias on concrete, Ben's palm firm on my back, I realized I hadn't scanned exits once. David resurfaced as rain, unexpected, unwelcome. His call came at midnight Tuesday. Riley, I'm at Travis County Jail. Silence pooled. Dewey, simpled, but need bail. Outside, thunder rattled my windows. Call your lawyer, I said, voice colder than Ive saline. Please, I'm sober, 6 months. This was one slip, and I'm not your net, I cut in, watching lightning fork over the lake. Fall on your own, hung up, blocked the number. Shaking, I texted Ben, you awake? His reply was instant, always. Door unlocked. I found him reading on the couch, glasses askew. No questions, just opened his arms. I collapsed against him, breathing his scent, sawdust and antiseptic. He called, I mumbled into his shirt. Jail. Ben's fingers carded through my hair. Want me to beat him up? He murmured against my crown. A watery laugh escaped me. Tempting. But no. He pulled back, cupping my face. Then I'll settle for reminding you who you are. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. Riley Buchanan. Medic. Gardener. Survivor. The kiss started tentative, a question against my lips. When I answered, it deepened into a vow. After, tangled in his sheets, I traced the scar on his shoulder, appendectomy, age 12. Moonlight striped our bodies. This real? I whispered. He caught my hand, pressed it over his heart. Feel that? Only, does that for things that matter. At dawn, we planted moonflower seeds along my fence, white blooms that unfurl only in darkness. For nights you forget your strength, Ben said, patting soil. I touched his stubble, marveling at this man who built planter boxes and guarded hearts with equal care. Doors open both ways, I echoed. His smile outshone the rising sun. Waking in Ben's bed felt like surfacing from warm ocean depths, sunlight striping the quilt, his arm heavy across my waist. I lay still, memorizing the rhythm of his breath against my neck. No panic, no urge to flee, just the solid reality of here. When his eyes fluttered open, he smiled without surprise, as if we'd done this for years. Morning, Buchanan, he rasped. We made coffee in silence, shoulders brushing in his narrow kitchen. Outside, mockingbirds trilled warnings to rivals. I understood the impulse to stake your claim on something good. Work demanded professionalism. In the ambulance bay, we slipped back into crisp rolls. Need a central line kit, Dr. Quote. Chen? But now his gaze lingered a half-second longer. During a lull, he slid a paper across the counter. Roof access code changed. New one. Spike. My laugh startled a passing orderly. Subtle. Dragons guard their treasures. He winked. David's shadow flickered when a trauma call echoed his dewy middle-aged man reeking of bourbon, steering wheel imprint on his sternum. Then intercepted me as I prepped intubation. I'll take this one. His hand squeezed my elbow brief, grounding. Go check on Mrs. Henderson in 4B. She asked for you. The old woman beamed, shoving Jell-O cups at me. Met your young man. Told him my hip's better 'cause he makes you smile. Her words untangled the knot in my chest. Summer draped Austin in shimmering heat. Ben helped me build the porch swing, his carpenter's hands guiding mine on the drill. Hold it steady, don't be afraid to lean in. Sawdust coated our skin as we tested its creak at twilight. He'd brought lemonade spiked with mint from my garden. To not running from nice things, he toasted. We rocked, watching fireflies blink their silent semaphore. His thumb traced circles on my palm. A language without lies. My birthday arrived like an afterthought. Marta left tamales on my doorstep. Walter sent honeycomb in a mason jar. At work, the staff sang off-key over grocery store cupcakes. Ben vanished after his shift. I found him at the cottage, stringing fairy lights through the cedar branches. No gifts, he insisted, handing me a trowel. We're planting something. Beneath the moonflower's tender shoots, he buried a time capsule, Spike's first bloom, pressed, Walter's honey label, a Waffle House napkin with Riley plus Ben doodled in grease. Proof, he said, patting soil, that good things take root. The challenge came unexpectedly. His ex-wife called while we grilled vegetables, her voice shrill through the speaker. You moved on fast, Ben. Is she another broken project? He stiffened, tongs hovering over charring zucchini. Claire, this isn't. Always the rescuer, she spat. I took the phone. This is Riley. We're busy burning dinner. Call back, never. Hung up. Ben stared, zucchini ash blackening. You didn't have to. Yes, I did, I said quietly. You're not her redemption story. Or mine. He kissed me then, fierce and grateful, smoke curling around us like a benediction. August brought a hellish night shift. 5-alarm warehouse fire, paramedics wheeling in charred figures. I triaged alongside Ben, sweat stinging our eyes. A firefighter collapsed mid-sentence, cyanotic, clutching his chest. Widowmaker, Ben snapped, yanking the crash cart. We worked in sync, defibrillator paddles, epinephrine, the sickening jolt of his body arching. When the EKG flatlined, our eyes met across the gurney. No words needed, just the shared weight of failure. In the locker room afterward, he pressed his forehead to mine, both of us trembling. Sometimes the dragon wins, he whispered. I drove us to Barton Springs at dawn. We plunged into icy water fully clothed, gasping as minnows darted around our ankles. Sunlight fractured through cypress trees. Remember what Abuela said? I treaded water. Light needs cracks. He pulled me close, our legs tangling in the current. So do rivers, he said. To carve canyons. At home, I opened the journal. Listed, Porch Swing Creek time capsule under moonflowers. His head against mine in locker room Barton Springs minnows. No more counting wounds. Only blessings, sharp and sweet as Spike's bloom. September arrived with a reprieve. Cool mornings smelling of damp cedar and river stones. Ben's lease ended, and the question hung unspoken until he stacked moving boxes beside my porch swing. If it's too soon, he began, knee-deep in packing tape. I handed him Spike. West window gets best light. His relieved exhale stirred my hair. We merged lives with practical grace, his cast-iron skillet beside my battered tea kettle, medical journals colonizing my gardening bookshelf. No grand declarations, just his toothbrush claiming space in my mason jar. A silent I belong here. Work tested us. A nursing home norovirus outbreak flooded the air with frail, dehydrated elders. Between IV insertions, Ben crouched beside Mrs. Gable, a dementia patient clawing at her gown. But... Rosemary, he murmured, holding her trembling hands. Smells like your garden, right? He'd remembered her admission file. Former botanist. I watched him soothe her with lavender sanitizer on a gauze pad. His patience a balm sharper than any drug. Later, elbows deep in soiled linens, he caught my gaze. She thought I was her son. Called me Henry. Better than Dr. Dipshit, I quipped. His laughter cut through the exhaustion. A clean, bright sound. David's ghost flickered one last time. His mother mailed my grandmother's pearl necklace. David found this packing, her note read. Said you should have it. The pearls spelt cold, tainted by his touch. Ben found me at the kitchen table, chain coiled like a dead serpent. Keep it? He asked neutrally. I shook my head, snapping the clasp. Some histories don't deserve preservation. We drove to the bridge at sunset. I hurled the necklace into the Colorado River, its splash swallowed by brown water. For new beginnings, Ben said, pressing a river-polished pebble into my palm. My garden prepared for autumn. Ben built a cold frame for the kale, whistling as he measured glass panes. Farm boy magic, I teased, handing him screws. He paused, wiping sweat. Magic's watching you talk to milkweed like their colleagues. Truth was, the monarchs had returned, flashes of orange against fading coneflowers. We sat on the swing at dusk, counting them through binoculars. Migration's a leap of faith, he mused. No guarantees, just instinct. His hand found mine. Like this. The hospital gala wombed mandatory glitter and rubber chicken. I unearthed a navy dress from the divorce donation pile. Ben appeared in a borrowed suit, hair stubbornly unruly. You're stunning, he breathed, spinning me. His palm settled possessively on my lower back as we entered the ballroom. Not showy, but firm. Proof, his touch said. I choose her. We endured speeches until escaping to the parking garage. There, under fluorescent lights, slow danced to distant orchestra covers drifting through vents. His lips brushed my temple. Still better than prom. Reality struck at 3 a.m., a pager's shriek. Multi-vehicle pileup on Mopac. We dressed in silence, shared thermos coffee in the car. At the chaos reeked of gasoline and blood. A pregnant teen sobbed as we assessed her shattered femur. My baby, she gasped. Ben cradled her head while I stabilized the limb. Look at me, Alicia, he commanded, voice bedrock steady. We got you both. In or two, I monitored fetal heart tones as ortho worked. A steady whoosh whoosh through headphones anchored us. After, Ben pressed his forehead to the observation window, watching Alicia's sleeping form. Never gets easier, he whispered. I linked our pinkies. Shouldn't. Thanksgiving dawned with frost-kissed grass. We hosted at the cottage Marta's tamales, Walter's honey-glazed carrots, Ben's infamous smoked turkey. Abuela Consuela blessed the table with rosemary sprigs. Gratitude, she announced, is fertilizer for the soul. Ben carved, laughing as Spike's new bloom upstaged the centerpiece. Later, washing dishes hip to hip, he nudged me. Next year, bigger table. I handed him a dripping plate. Porch swing fits too just fine. That night, I opened the journal. Beneath Walter's honey, Ben's coffee, I added, river swallowing pearls, fetal heartbeat in headphones. His hand on my back in a crowded room, no more cracks for light to escape, only whole, unbroken warmth. December wrapped Austin in a chill that smelled of wood smoke and impending rain. Ben and I fell into a comfortable rhythm. Morning coffee shared over case notes, evenings tangled on the porch swing under a shared wool blanket. Spike sat crowned on the windowsill, his single bloom stubbornly yellow against gray skies. He's mocking winter, Ben declared, tapping the pot. We were learning each other's silences, his thoughtful pauses during patient charts, my habit of humming Sinatra while repotting herbs. The hospital decked its halls with garlands that clashed with the air's sterile glare. During a rare lull, Ben cornered me by the supply closet. Secret Santa, he whispered, pressing a small velvet pouch into my palm. Inside lay a river stone, smooth obsidian threaded with silver drilled and threaded on a leather cord. Matches mine, he said, pulling his collar to reveal an identical stone. Guardian dragon scales. Never go into battle without one. I fastened it around my neck, its cool weight settling above my scrubs. Protection against disposable husbands, norovirus, bad cafeteria coffee. His smile warmed me more than the gift. David's final echo came via certified mail divorce decree amendments. Linda's crisp summary, he relinquishes all claims to joint assets. No explanation. Ben found me shredding the envelope into the compost bin. Need me to salt the earth where he stood? He offered, half joking. I shook my head, wiping soil on my jeans. He's compost now. Feed the garden. Ben's hand covered mine on the bin's edge. Best revenge is living well, Buchanan. Living excellently, I corrected. Christmas Eve brought sleet and a code blue elderly man collapsing in church. We worked in grim tandem, compressions, epi, the flatline's relentless whine. His wife's wail sliced through the crash bay doors, raw, primal grief. Ben caught my wrist as I stripped off gloves. Go, I'll handle the paperwork. I found her in the chapel, clutching rosary beads. He hated hymns, she choked out. Always said they sounded like dying cats. We sat in silence as carols floated from the lobby. No platitudes, just presence. Later, Ben appeared with hot chocolate. Room 3 needs stitches. You're better at distracting kids. His stone rested against his scrubs, a dark promise kept. We skipped midnight mass. Drove instead to the Congress Avenue Bridge, empty in the icy drizzle. Below, dormant bats clustered like shivering leaves. Should we sing them a hymn? Ben murmured, arm tight around my shoulders. I rested my head against his. Too many dying cats. His laugh fogged the air. Christmas dawned brittle bright. Marta arrived bearing tamales and abrazos, Walter trailing with honeycomb mead. Ben wrestled a lopsided pine into the living room corner. Charlie Brown's reject, he announced, stringing lights. We decorated with hospital syringe caps, sterilized, dried chili peppers, and Spike's relocated pot as the star. Abuela Consuela blessed it with rosemary smoke. Para amor que crece fuerte como árbol, she intoned. For love that grows strong as a tree. Ben's gift was buried under the tree's sparse branches, a worn leather journal. Inside, meticulous sketches. My garden in each season, scenes rendered in charcoal. Spike's triumphant bloom. On the last page, a rooftop telescope pointed at a meteor-streaked sky, two silhouettes leaning close. You drew these? He shrugged, ears reddening. Farm boy doodles. Marta snatched the book. Artista. Next tattoo, her name on your cactus. I cut in, tossing tinsel at her. Nightfall found us on the swing. Walter's mead warming our throats. The city glittered like a spill of diamonds. Almost didn't come to Austin, Ben said suddenly. Took a locum job here on a coin flip. His thumb rubbed circles on my palm. Best gamble I ever lost. I turned his hand over, tracing the calluses from scalpels and hammers. Heads or tails? Heads for change, he said softly. Tails for same old. The unspoken question hung, what am I? I kissed him, slow and deep. His mouth tasted of honey and hope. Heads, I whispered against his lips. Definitely heads. Later, washing dishes, I caught him studying my mother's recipe box faded cards in her looping script. Next year, he said, holding up Grandma's pecan tassies, we make these. Properly. We, not you. The words settled in my bones, warm as the stone at my neck. In bed, I opened the new journal. On the first crisp page, I wrote, Guardian Stones. Bat bridges in winter. His sketches. Heads. No more counting cracks, only foundations. January's freeze cracked into false spring, a week of balmy afternoons that tricked bluebonnets into premature bloom. Ben and I fell into easy domesticity, Sunday pancake flip-offs, his always golden, mine charcoal-edged, shared on-call shifts, and late-night debates over Star Trek reruns. His farm boy practicality balanced my city impatience. When my ancient pickup sputtered, he appeared with a toolbox, whistling. Carburetor's crying uncle, he diagnosed, grease streaking his jaw. I handed him wrenches, content to watch competence unfold. The tested our equilibrium. A knife fight spilled 4 gang members into triage taunts and blood flying. Ben took the critical chest wound. I handled the snarling teen with a slashed femoral artery. Touch her and I'll finish you. The kids screamed at Ben, thrashing. Ben didn't flinch, pressure steady on the wound. Save threats for when you're not bleeding out, he said calmly. Later, stitching the kid's leg, I learned his name. Trey. Why'd you jump in? I asked, swabbing grit from the laceration. He's my brother, Trey muttered, avoiding my eyes. The dragon scale at my neck felt heavy. Ben found me scrubbing Trey's blood from my forearms. You okay? Reminded me of David's bar fights, I admitted. The chaos. He leaned against the sink, shoulder warm against mine. Difference is, we walk away together. His pinky hooked mine, a tiny anchor. We celebrated Spike's first anniversary with me, a ridiculous gotcha day party. Marta brought confetti. Walter gifted a miniature sombrero. Ben presented a terracotta pot painted like dragon scales. Upgrade for the warrior, he declared. As we repotted him, Spike's roots clung stubbornly to old soil. Resists change, I noted. Ben's smile was wry. Sound familiar? Valentine's Day loomed. I braced for clichés roses, overwrought gestures. Instead, Ben woke me at 4 a.m. Adventure time. He drove us through fog-shrouded hills to Enchanted Rock, its granite dome glowing under a waning moon. We climbed in silence, breath puffing white. At the summit, Don blushed the sky peach and violet. "No store-bought hearts today," he said, pulling 2 breakfast tacos from his jacket. "Just us and the world waking up." Below, the hill country unfurled like a rumpled quilt. I kissed him, cold lips warming quickly. "Best gift," I murmured against his mouth. "The quiet?" David's specter flickered one final time. Sorting old boxes, I found his military dog tags, forgotten in a shoebox. Ben watched me polish the dull metal. "Keep them?" "No," I said, but not for spite. We drove to Fort Hood, left them anonymously at the VA hospital's front desk. "May they find someone who needs closure," I told the receptionist. In the parking lot, Ben squeezed my hand. "That's how you bury ghosts." Spring's first storm hit hard tornado sirens wailing at midnight. We huddled in the bathtub, Spike between us, listening to hail pummel the roof. "Worst first date ever," Ben joked, flashlight beam dancing. I rested my head on his shoulder. "At least you brought a cactus." The radio crackled reports, barns leveled, power lines down. When the all-clear sounded, we emerged to a shredded garden. Ben knelt beside flattened milkweed. "Monarchs'll be pissed," he sighed. Rebuilding began at dawn. Neighbors spilled into our yard, Walter with plywood, Marta wielding a chainsaw. Ben directed repairs like a field medic, splinting snapped fence posts with duct tape. Trey appeared hesitantly, toting a bucket of mulch. "Heard you got wrecked," he mumbled. We worked side by side, salvaging perennials. When Ben handed Trey the last surviving tomato seedling, the boy cradled it like a wounded bird. "Put it somewhere the wind won't win," Ben advised. That evening, we sat amidst the wreckage, splintered wood and mud-caked tools. Ben produced a bottle of Walter's mead. "Two things that weather storms," he toasted. Fireflies blinked bravely in the ruins. "Next time," I said. "Bigger roots." He kissed my grimy forehead. Already growing. In bed, I opened Ben's sketch journal. Added to his rooftop telescope drawing, enchanted rock tacos at Don Trey's hands on a tomato plant, hailstones in the bathtub with Spike no ghosts. Only living things, stubbornly reaching for light. April's warmth coaxed life from storm-ravaged soil. Ben and I spent weekends rebuilding, salvaging fence posts, coaxing trampled coneflowers upright with stakes and twine. Trey became a fixture, riding Saturdays with Walter's spare tools. "Compensatin' for bein' a punk," he'd grunt, but his hands gentled around damaged stems. I taught him to splice tomato vines, then showed him how to solder irrigation lines. Slowly, the garden rewrote its story in new growth. Work shifted with the season, bicycle accidents, rattlesnake bites, the first heat strokes. During a trauma call, a collapsed construction worker, Ben's dragonstone slipped from his scrubs, clattering against the crash cart. As we intubated, Trey shadowing as a junior amp froze at the man's blue-tinged lips. Pressures crashing. Then barked, never breaking rhythm, "Trey EP, now." The boy's trembling hands found the vial. Later, in the ambulance bay, Ben clapped his shoulder. "You didn't fold." Trey stared at his boots. "Almost did." Ben's voice softened. "Almost doesn't count in Rhesus." My birthday gift arrived subtly. Ben repainted the cottage shutters, Texas sky blue, while I worked a double. I came home to find him asleep on the porch swing, brush-dried in his hair. Trey had left a seedling on the step, moonflower too. Stormproof. I tucked a blanket over Ben, breathing in turpentine and his familiar sawdust scent. This, I thought, is how safety feels. Marta's Cinco de Mayo party tested our progress. David's cousin Louis appeared, tequila loud and oblivious. "Heard Davy's in rehab again," he slurred, clapping Ben's back. "You upgraded, Riley." The patio fell silent. Ben's knuckles whitened around his soda can. Before I could speak, Trey materialized. "Yo, Tio," he said, steering Louis toward the grill. "Show me how you char those peppers without burning 'em." Ben exhaled slowly. Kids got instincts. I threaded my fingers through his. Learned from a pro. The real test came at midnight. A call from Linda. David had OD'd. "EQ stable," she reported. "He listed you as emergency contact." Ben watched me hang up, moonlight etching worry on his face. "Go if you need to." I touched the dragonstone at my neck. His choices aren't my responsibility. But sleep eluded me. At dawn, I drove to the hospital, not for David, but for closure. He looked shrunken in the sterile bed, Ives snaking from bruised arms. Riley, he rasped, thought you'd gloat? I stayed near the door. Gloating's for people who still care. His hollow laugh became a cough. Always too good for me. No, I said quietly. Just too good at leaving. The heart monitor beeped like a countdown. Tell Ben, he began, but I turned. Tell him yourself when you're clean. Ben was splitting firewood when I returned. He paused, axe mid-swing. Okay. I nodded, taking the handle. Swing with me. We split logs until our muscles burned, the rhythm a wordless purge. After, he pressed a cold cider into my hand. Front porch needs repainting next. Not, are you okay? Not what happened? Just the next repair. A ladder extended toward the future. Trey brought his report card in May B- in biology, C in English. Teacher says I gotta write some reflection essay, he groaned. Ben slid him root beer. Write about grafting plants. How broken stuff grows stronger when you fuse it right. Later, I found Trey scribbling at our kitchen table, Spike's thorny silhouette outlined in his notebook margin. IB. Memorial Day weekend, we kayaked Lady Bird Lake. Ben pointed out great blue herons, grumpy old men of the water. As we drifted under willows, he grew quiet. My divorce papers came through last week. The water lapped our hull. Claire signed without contest. I trailed my fingers through murky green. Regrets? He caught my hand. Only that I didn't flip that coin sooner. At home, we planted Trey's moonflower beside its predecessor. Ben's arms settled around my waist as dusk painted the sky tangerine. Roots deep enough now? He murmured into my hair. Below us, green shoots pierced the earth, crooked but determined. Deep enough, I said. That night, I added to Ben's sketch journal, Trey handing Epi and a code blue axe splitting wood into clean halves, heron wings against twilight, no storms ahead. Only currents and the strength to navigate them. July's heat clamped down like a vice triple digits by noon, asphalt shimmering like mirages. The hummed with the brittle energy of overloaded circuits, toddlers with heat rash, dehydrated laborers, elderly souls confused by the unrelenting blaze. Ben and I moved through it like dancers in a familiar routine, him triaging with ice packs and electrolyte tabs, me starting IVE lines on trembling seniors. Trey shadowed us, his rookie nerves steadied by Ben's low murmurs. Check capillary refill, or skin tenting means urgent fluids. The critical call crackled overhead. Heatstroke, Zilker Park Trail Runner, core temp 106. We met paramedics at the bay, their gurney bearing a young woman seizing, skin fire red. Ben barked orders. Ice bath prep. Cooling blanket stat. As I plunged an IV into her collapsing vein. Trey froze at the sight of her agonal breathing. Trey, Ben's voice cut through the chaos. Grab the rectal probe now. The boy jolted into action, hands steady as he passed the device. We worked in sink ice packs in armpits, cold saline flooding her veins, until her temperature began to drop. When her eyes fluttered open, rasping, "Water?" Ben's shoulders sagged in relief. "Close call, champ," he told Trey later in the break room. The boy's grin was sweaty, triumphant. Home offered sanctuary. We'd rigged a misting system over the porch. Walter's jury-rigged gift, where we collapsed as dusk bled purple over the sky. Ben handed me a sweating glass of sun tea. Trey asked if he could call us his godparents, he chuckled, stretching his legs. Said his actual godparents are Ayer's agents who smell like mothballs. I traced condensation down the glass. We're not exactly Sunday school material. Nope, Ben agreed, catching my hand. But we're his. The garden thrived defiantly. Moonflowers unfurled luminous trumpets each evening, their fragrance cutting through the day's scorched breath. One night, we found Trey crouched beside them, sketching in a notebook. "Homework?" Ben asked. Trey shrugged, showing us a detailed pencil study of spike thorns rendered like dragon armor. Bio extra credit, anatomy of resilience. Ben ruffled his hair. A+ material. A shift later, Ben cornered me by the med dispensary. "Got a hypothetical," he said, spinning a vial of lorazepam like a tiny top. If someone, say, a farm boy with questionable taste in trucks, wanted to make a cottage officially his home, would the resident medic require a formal proposal? Or just better closet space? My pulse stuttered. Closets are negotiable, I managed. But farm boys must agree to never store motor oil near the herbal tea. His smile softened. Deal. We celebrated at Magnolia Cafe honey fried chicken and shared peach cobbler. Ben slid a key across the table, old brass, flecked with green paint. Made a copy. For emergencies or non-emergencies. Like if you forget yours. I clasped it, the metal warm from his pocket. Or if I need someone to kill scorpions. Always on scorpion duty, he vowed. David's epilogue arrived via Linda, rehab completion papers. He asked me to tell you he's sober 6 months, she said gently. No response needed. I shredded the letter, composted the pieces beside the moonflowers. Ben watched silently, then handed me a trowel. New fertilizer. August's first cool front swept in like grace, a midnight storm rinsing the heat from the air. We woke to rain drumming the roof, Spike's new bud glistening on the sill. Ben pulled me close under the quilt. Hear that? He murmured, the earth sighing. I pressed my ear to his chest, listening to his heartbeat sync with the downpour. No more fractures, just this solid sure. At work, we trained Trey on pediatric codes, using dolls, not real lives. When he nailed the compression rhythm, then high-fived him. Ready for real ones? Trey paled but nodded. Yeah, got my dragons. He tapped the obsidian stone beneath his scrubs, a replica Ben gifted him last week. Later, in the cottage garden, we hung a wind chime from the rebuilt Arbor Marta's gift, seashells singing in the breeze. Ben's arm circled my waist as fireflies sparked in the lavender. Roots deep enough for forever? He asked. I turned, key digging into my palm like a promise. Forever's just the next right now, I said, and kissed him as the moonflowers bloomed. Late August simmered, a thick, honeyed heat that clung to the skin long after sundown. Ben and I fell into the rhythm of shared shifts and stolen cool moments. Early morning runs along the river trail, evenings sprawled on the porch swing with Spike between us like a prickly chaperone. Trey's presence became seamless, showing up unannounced for Saturday pancake breakfasts, his laughter rough but genuine as Ben flicked blueberries into his mouth. Still got it, old man, Trey teased when one missed. Ben retaliated by flicking batter at him. I watched, syrup bottle forgotten, struck by the ordinary magic of this. No grand gestures, just a kitchen sticky with shared life. The tested our fledgling piece. A hospice transfer arrived, Mr. Day, clear. Ellis, end-stage pancreatic cancer, his pain uncontrolled. His daughter, red-eyed and trembling, gripped my arm. He wanted 1 more week to see the grandbaby born. Ben reviewed his chart, jaw tight. Morphine drips maxed. We could try fentanyl, but his heart's too frail. The unspoken truth hung heavy. Trey hovered near the door, clutching a fresh IV bag. Kid, Ben said gently, grab the ultrasound. We'll find a vein. As I guided the needle into a thready vessel, Mr. Ellis's papery hand found mine. Tell Sarah, he whispered. I leaned close. Tell her yourself. Fight for that baby. His faint nod was a battle cry. Later, in the break room, Ben scrubbed his face. We bought hours, not days. Trey stared into his untouched soda. Why's dying gotta be ugly? Ben's voice was gravel. Not ugly, just human. He tossed Trey an apple, like fixing engines. Sometimes the parts wear out. The simplicity anchored us. Home became our balm. Trey helped build raised beds for fall vegetables, Ben's design. All reclaimed barn wood and stubborn optimism. As we hauled soil bags, Trey paused, wiping sweat. Got my EMT certification letter. He pulled a crumpled envelope from his pocket, approved, stamped in bold. Ben whooped, lifting him in a bear hug. Knew it, kid. I snapped a photo, Trey's stunned grin, Ben's pride blazing brighter than the afternoon sun. Sent it to Marta with one word, familia. Ben's birthday crept up. No fanfare requested. I woke early, baking his mom's pecan tassies while he slept. The recipe card, splattered with decades of vanilla, felt like a covenant. Trey arrived with a lopsidedly wrapped gift, a charcoal sketch of Ben teaching him compressions. Spike scowling in the corner. "Frame it," Ben demanded, voice thick. Right above the stove. The challenge came subtly. Sarah Ellis called the voice breaking. Dad passed, but he held my girl, 10 minutes. She wept. "Thank you for the time." Ben took the phone, his free hand finding mine. "Congratulations, Sarah. What's her name?" "Eleanor Grace," she whispered. We sat in silence after, the dragon stones cool against our scrubs. 10 minutes, Ben murmured. Enough for a lifetime. That evening we harvested the garden first ripe tomatoes, basil fragrant enough to drown August's heat. Trey manned the grill, burgers charring at the edges. "Medic-approved carcinogens," Ben declared, piling his plate high. Under strings of patio lights, with Marta's salsa verde dripping and Walter's mead flowing, the cottage hummed. Abuela Consuela pressed a sprig of rosemary into Ben's palm. "Para bendecir nuevos caminos," she said. "To bless new paths." Later, washing dishes, Ben nudged me. "Got something." He led me to the garden shed. Inside, beside coiled hoses, stood a gleaming vintage stethoscope. Rose gold tubing, engraved Dr. Buchanan. "Found it at a flea market," he said, ears pink. "For when, you know, clinical director interviews next month." I fastened it around my neck, bell cold against my skin. "Hear better than the old one." His smile was a promise. "Here's hearts louder." We sat on the swing long after everyone left. Crickets thrummed, and Spike's second bloom glowed ivory under moonlight. Ben's thumb traced circles on my wrist. Trey asked if he could move into the garage apartment. I stilled. "What'd you say?" Told him we'd discuss it. The words settled like a seed in fertile soil. "Needs his own key," I said. Ben's laugh was low, sweet. "Already made one." In bed, I opened Ben's sketch journal. Beneath Trey's empty approval letter, I added, "Pecan tassies on Grandma's recipe card, Eleanor Grace's 10-minute stethoscope bell catching moonlight no loose ends. Only new beginnings, tender and tenacious as fall's first shoots." September arrived like a held breath cool mornings, giving way to honey gold afternoons, the first migrant hawks circling overhead. My clinical director interview loomed, turning our cottage into a war room. Ben quizzed me on ethics scenarios while kneading bread dough. Trey highlighted leadership manuals at the kitchen table, muttering, "This crap's drier than her gauze." Spike presided over the chaos, his third bloom unfurling like a white flag. The interview panel convened in the hospital's suffocating boardroom, 3 suits flanking Dr. Chen, her gaze unreadable. "Describe a time you led through failure," a VP demanded. I pictured Mr. Ellis's frail hand in mine. Lost a hospice patient minutes before his granddaughter's birth. My team bought him 10. The room stilled. We don't save everyone, but we bear witness. Dr. Chen's pen hovered. "And if budget cuts forced triage choices, I'd fight," I said. "Then document why I lost." Afterward, Ben met me in the ambulance bay with cold brew. Nailed it? Either that or torched my career. He kissed my temple. Dragons breathe fire for a reason. Trey's move-in weekend erupted in joyful chaos. Walter donated a dented mini-fridge. Marta arrived with conchas and a velvet painting of the Virgin Mary for spiritual HVAC. Ben and Trey wrestled a thrifted sofa into the garage apartment, formerly David's man cave, now scrubbed of his ghost. "Home sweet hovel," Trey declared, plugging in a neon Buc-ee's sign. A call shattered the celebration. School bus versus semi, I-35 southbound. We sprinted to the ear, sirens wailing ahead. The bay became bedlam children's whimpers, the coppery stench of trauma. A boy clutched my scrubs, face bloodied. My sister stuck. Ben vaulted onto a gurney, intubating a driver with flail chest. Riley PD triage. I herded dazed kids toward trauma 2, triage tags flashing yellow, green, yellow, then froze. Trey knelt beside a still form, a girl in a sequined backpack. "No pulse," he yelled, starting compressions. Her ribs gave under his palms with sickening crunches. "Epinephrine," Ben barked, materializing beside him. I jammed the needle into tiny bone, my hands steady only because his shoulder pressed against mine. Clear. The shock jolted her small frame. Nothing. Again beepy beepy. The flatlines drone swallowed the chaos. Trey's compressions faltered. Ben gripped his wrist. Time of death, 14,003. The boy's wail tore through the bay. Lissa! As we pulled the sheet over sequined straps. Silence. Then Trey bolted. We found him retching behind the biohazard dumpster. Ben wordlessly handed him water. I felt her ribs break, Trey choked. Like kindling. You fought, Ben said, kneeling in gravel. That's the job. I touched Trey's dragonstone. She wasn't alone. Because of you. That night, the cottage felt hollow. Ben split firewood, thwack, 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 while I deadheaded coneflowers with savage precision. Trey disappeared into his apartment. At midnight, a sketch slid under our door, a girl's hand clutching a sequined backpack strap shaded in charcoal. Beneath it, I'm still here. T.I. knocked. Found him rebuilding a carburetor at 2 a.m., grease smeared like war paint. Can't sleep, he muttered. Ben brought tools. We dismantled the engine block under a single bare bolt, the ritual cleansing us word by wrench turn. My first code blue was a kid too, Ben said quietly. Skateboard versus dump truck. I dreamt the crash for months. Trey tightened a bolt. Does it stop? The remembering? No, I said, but the weight gets easier to carry. At dawn, Dr. Chen called. The board was impressed, she said, especially your triage protocol proposal. Welcome aboard, Director Buchanan. Ben whooped, spinning me in the dew-wet grass. Trey saluted with a wrench. Does this mean I get free Band-Aids? We celebrated with migas at Magnolia Cafe. Over crispy tortillas and fiery salsa, Trey cleared his throat. Applied to nursing school. Ben's fork clattered. Serious? Gotta fix more than engines, Trey shrugged, ears reddening. Ben slid his dragonstone across the table. For when classrooms get heavy, home again, I knelt in the garden. Planted bluebonnet seeds along the fence, next spring's promise. Ben's arms circled my waist, chin resting on my head. Roots deep enough for storms now? He murmured. Trey's laughter floated from the garage, where Spike's painted pot gleamed on his windowsill. Yes, I thought, soil cool under my palms. Deep enough for anything. Late October's chill sharpened the air-crisp mornings smelling of wood smoke and damp earth. The garden's storm-battered beds now bristled with resilience. Kale leaves deepened to emerald, carrots shouldered through loam, and moonflowers climbed the repaired arbor with stubborn grace. Trey knelt beside me, transplanting garlic cloves with surgical precision. Why's gardening feel like, triage? He grunted, wiping dirt on his jeans. Everything's either dying, thriving, or waiting. Ben chuckled from the porch swing, sanding salvaged cedar planks. Farm rule, kid, pay attention, and the land tells you what it needs. Work echoed the theme. A wave of RSV flooded pediatrics. Infants struggling against mucus-thick lungs, monitors beeping a frantic chorus. During a night shift, I supervised Trey through his first solo nebulizer treatment on a wheezing toddler. Steady breaths, Liam, Trey murmured, adjusting the mask. The boy's panicked eyes locked onto his. Scary, Liam gasped. Trey didn't flinch. Feels like a dragon in your chest, huh? Breathe slow, starve the fire. When Liam's sats climbed, Trey's relieved exhale fogged his glasses. Later, Ben nudged him. You gave him control. That's medicine. David's ghost surfaced unexpectedly. A charity gala invitation arrived. Children's Hospital fundraiser, hosted by David and Associates. Ben watched me shred it into compost. Regrets? Only that I didn't compost him sooner, I quipped, but my hands trembled. That night, I dreamt of the garage cherry red hair, fogged windows. Woke, gasping. Ben pulled me close, his heart beat against my ear. Still here, he murmured. Always. We broke ground on Ben's project, a garden bench from storm-felled pecan wood. Trey measured, Ben sawed, I sanded edges smooth. Why a bench? Trey asked. Ben pointed to the est. Now, sign. For sitting in the now and hiding from wedding planners. Marta had unleashed her tias on us florists, caterers, relentless lace samples. Smart man, I laughed, brushing sawdust from Ben's hair. The test came at 3 a.m. A call from Linda. David had relapsed, found unconscious in a motel, empty pill bottles strewn. He asked for you, she said gently. Ben's arm tightened around me. Wanna go? Moonlight striped our bed. I thought of Liam fighting his dragon breath, of garlic cloves pushing through dark soil. No, I whispered, his war isn't mine anymore. Next day, Trey found me deadheading coneflowers. Ben told me, he said, scuffing his boot. My mom, she odd when I was 10. I kept waiting for her to choose me. He snapped a brittle stem. Sometimes people are just broken. I handed him shears. And sometimes we mend with the pieces left. We worked in silence until the garden breathed clean again. Ben's gift arrived on a frosty dawn, a wrought iron trellis shaped like dragon wings, installed behind the bench. For the moonflowers to climb, he said, cheeks pink with cold. And us to remember. We're guarded. I traced the metal curves, their strength delicate as a stethoscope's bell. Always. Thanksgiving brought Marta's tamale feast. Abuela Consuela blessed the table, sprinkling rosemary over Walter's honey-glazed ham. Trey carved with theatrical flair until Ben snatched the knife. Farm boy privilege. Laughter echoed off the porch where David's grill once stood. After, we bundled leftovers for the night shifter crew. Trey hesitated at the door. Can I bring some to Liam's mom? Kids back in peds. Ben clapped his shoulder. Take the jalapeno cornbread. Best medicine. That night, a frost warning sent us scrambling. We draped bedsheets over tomatoes, lugged potted herbs indoors. Trey guarded Spike like a relic. He survived the tornado. He'll own winter. Ben strung Christmas lights through the dragon trellis for warmth and morale. Standing back, our breath fogging in the cold, the garden glowed, fragile things sheltered, light defiant against the dark. In bed, Ben's sketch journal lay open. I added, Trey's hand steadying a nebulizer mask on a child pecan wood bench under the dragon wing trellis frost-kissed kale under makeshift sheet tents. No more battles in the garage shadows. Only this, tending the light, one breath at a time. October draped Austin in amber crisp air, carrying the scent of cedar smoke and ripe persimmons. My new office overlooked the ambulance bay, a stark contrast to the era's kinetic pulse. Budget reports and staffing grids replaced trauma bays. My stethoscope now gathered dust beside framed credentials. Director Buchanan, nurses murmured, a title still foreign on my tongue. That morning, I'd mediated a shouting match between oncology and pediatrics over flu vaccine allocations. We need equity, not equality, I'd insisted, echoing Ben's farm boy logic. You don't water rocks when seedlings thirst. He arrived at dusk, finding me slumped over scheduling nightmares. Code blue in paperwork? Ben teased, setting a thermos of chicken soup on my desk, Walter's recipe, judging by the honey undertones. His hand settled on my shoulders, thumbs kneading the tension coiled at my neck. Trays melting down over anatomy. Brought backup. I leaned into his touch. Muscles or bones? Both. He called the scapula that wing thing. We shared a tired smile. Leadership felt like holding lightning, exhilarating, and terrifying. At home, Trey sprawled at the kitchen table, textbooks devouring every inch. Why's the heart gotta have 8 layers? He groaned, stabbing a diagram. Spike watched judgmentally from his dragon scale pot. Ben commandeered a marker. Think of it like an onion that cries when you cut it. Trey grumbled. Exactly, I chimed in. Each layer protects something vital. Like armor. Ben sketched a cartoon heart with dragon wings. Your shield, kid. Guard it well. Trey's frown softened. Fine, but if I fail, I'm blaming y'all's metaphors. The first frost threatened mid-month. We harvested the garden's final bounty butternut squash. Stubborn peppers, basil surrendered to the cold. Trey unearthed sweet potatoes with theatrical flair. Buried treasure, Ben tossed one to me. Next year, double the plot. Maybe chickens. Chickens? Trey gaped. In Austin? Free-range omelets beat cafeteria slop, Ben countered. I caught his gaze next year woven into every word. My trial came swiftly, a nurse's strike vote over mandatory overtime. Conference room tension thickened as union reps slammed fists. We're not machines. Carla Formichu snapped. I stood, dragonstone cool against my collarbone. Neither am I. My first shift here, I lost a teen to a drunk driver. I clocked out and sobbed in my car. Silence fell. We fix people, but we're breakable too. So here's my offer, no mandatory if you approve staggered triage teams. Ben's advice echoed, negotiate like you're saving a life, calm hands, steady voice. They voted yes. Afterward, Ben drove us to Pedernales Falls. No stethoscopes allowed, he decreed, handing me a blanket. We hiked beyond the tourist trails, moonlight silvering the limestone. At the summit, he unfolded a telescope, not for meteors, but Saturn's rings, sharp and serene. Perspective, he murmured, guiding my eye to the lens, makes dramas feel small. The cosmos blurred as he knelt, pulling a velvet box from his pocket. No fanfare, just his calloused hand cradling mime. Riley Buchanan, he said, voice roughened by wind. I've loved you in ambulances and gardens and biohazard dumpsters. Marry me? The ring glowed, a pear-cut diamond nestled between obsidian shards. Dragon scales, I breathed. To guard our always. His thumb brushed my knuckle. Is that a yes? I laughed, tears freezing on my cheeks. Only if you promise forever includes chickens. His kiss sealed the vow, Saturn, our silent witness. Trey's anatomy exam results arrived Thanksgiving morning. He slammed through the door, waving the paper like a victory flag. B+, the wing thing saved me. Ben hoisted him off the ground. Knew it. We celebrated with Walter's honey-glazed turkey and abuela's mole. At the head of the crowded table now expanded, just as Ben promised. Marta raised her glass. To familia, she toasted. The one you're born into and the one you build. Ben's hand found mine under the tablecloth, the diamond's edge, a sweet pressure. Trey's applying to IT nursing school, he whispered. Says he wants to fix engines and people. Outside, frost etched the moonflower's final blooms. I traced the obsidian shards on my ring past and future fused. That night, I added to Ben's sketch journal. Saturn's rings through a telescope lens strike boat tally sheet with, yes circled, Trey's BPS exam floating over sweet potatoes, no more storms. Only constellations, fixed, faithful, hours. December arrived with the softness frost-kissed mornings giving way to pale gold afternoons. The cottage wrapped in the scent of pine needles and Ben's sourdough starter bubbling on the counter. My engagement ring caught the light as I flicked through venue brochures. Not the country club David once favored, but hilltop vineyards and rustic barns. Chickens optional but encouraged, Ben teased, sliding a mug of cocoa toward me. Trey scowled at his laptop. So, why's nursing school require an essay on feelings? I fix stuff, not cry about it. The hospital's holiday chaos offered grim contrast. A Christmas Eve mass casualty multi-car pileup on black ice flooded the air. I coordinated from command, my dragonstone cool beneath my collar. Ben worked Trauma 1 on a pregnant woman. Trey, shadowing him, called out vitals with new steadiness. Fetal heartbeat fading. He yelled. Ben's hands flew emergency C-section under lights, the neon or sign bathing them in red. When the infant's thin wail pierced the chaos, Trey's choked sob echoed through my headset. Alive? I asked. Ben's voice shook, both. Barely. Later, in my office, Trey stared at his trembling hands. That baby, it was blue. Ben clasped his shoulder. Now it's pink because you kept your head. I handed Trey the stethoscope from my desk, the rose gold one Ben gifted me. Listen, he pressed it to his own chest. Sounds like drums? Your heartbeat guarding theirs, I said. He wore it home like a medal. Wedding plans crystallized over pancake sundaes. No tuxes, Ben decreed. Flutes and chambray. Trey gagged. I'm not being your best cactuses in overalls. We compromised. Charcoal suits for them, my grandmother's lace veil over a simple ivory dress. Marta volunteered her backyard. Con tamales y mariachi. And Walter promised honeymead. Just no slow dances, Trey grumbled. My 2 left feet are biohazards. David's shadow flickered one last time. Linda forwarded a rehab graduation photo. He stood stiffly beside his sponsor, eyes hollow but clear. He asked you to know he's sober, her note read. I showed Ben over garden kale. Like, send congratulations? He asked neutrally. I shredded the photo, scattered it with eggshells around the moonflowers. Let them grow peace. Christmas morning dawned quiet. Trey burst in bearing lumpy gifts, a knitted cactus cozy for Spike so he doesn't freeze his thorns off, and for us, a charred wooden signist. Now screwed to salvaged barnwood. Garage project, he mumbled. Ben hung it above the porch swing instantly. Perfect. The real test came at New Year's. Ben's parents visited stoic Iowa farmers with wind-burned cheeks and kind eyes. His mother, Ruth, pulled me aside while shucking corn. Ben wrote us about David. Said you carry scars like barbed wire. My spine stiffened. She touched my dragonstone. Good. Barbed wire protects tender crops. Later, his father gripped my hand. He's steadier with you. Like land after drought. New Year's Eve found us at Zilker Park, bundled on a blanket. Ben pointed to the upcoming clinical directors conference, Chicago in February. You'll crush it. Trey groaned. More essays? Keynote speech, I corrected. Fireworks exploded overhead, crimson and gold blooming against the sky. Ben's lips brushed my ear. Make it a honeymoon trip. My yes was lost in the boom. Trey's acceptance letter arrived January 2nd. He stared at the embossed logo, silent for once. Full ride? Ben guessed. Lested, Trey swallowed hard. Conditional. Gotta pass chemistry. Ben tossed him the car keys. Celebratory Buck E's run. Jerkies on me. As they left, Trey paused at the door. Hey, Riley? His voice cracked. Thanks for not giving up on me. The est. Now sign gleamed behind him. That night, I pressed the acceptance letter into Ben's sketch journal. Added, infant's first cry in an ear barn wood sign catching fireworks, Ruth's hands on Iowa's sweet corn, no more ghosts. Only this, roots sunk deep, stretching toward spring. February's chill clung stubbornly, but the cottage pulsed with anticipation. Wedding invitations, hand-printed on seed paper by Marta's niece, lay stacked beside my clinical director keynote slides. 2 weeks, Ben murmured against my temple as I rehearsed lines. Chicago's frost or Austin's bluebonnets? I traced the obsidian shards in my engagement ring. Bluebonnets win, always. The hospital crisis struck with cruel timing. A ransomware attack encrypted patient records mid-shift monitors blinking error codes, nurses scribbling vitals on paper scraps. Chaos rippled through the like a toxic wave. Medication history's gone. Allergy alerts offline. Dr. Chen's voice crackled over the backup PA. I took command, my dragon stone cold against my throat. Paper protocols only. Nurses double-check every dose with pharmacists. Ben manual triage tags, now. Ben moved like a field general, his calm infecting the panicked staff. He rigged a whiteboard system, green, stable. Yellow, watch. Red, crashing. Trey, on spring break, appeared in scrubs unasked. Where you need me. Pharmacy runner, I ordered. No errors. He saluted, darting through the maze of gurneys with a teenager's frantic grace. Hours bled together. A diabetic teen seized when insulin doses lagged. An elderly man's hidden penicillin allergy surfaced as hives swelled his throat. We fought with pens and clipboards, Ben's voice a steady drumbeat. Tag updated. Room 4 needs epi. When systems finally flickered online at dusk, the air erupted in exhausted cheers. Dr. Chen gripped my arm. You kept this ship afloat. Home was a sanctuary of scattered lace and solder fumes. Ben had missed his suit fitting. Trey crouched over the kitchen table, soldering wires to a battered speaker. Backup playlist for the wedding, he muttered, in case Marta's mariachi flakes. I collapsed onto the porch swing, the adrenaline crash leaving me hollow. Ben joined me, pressing a thermos of Walter's mead into my hands. Today was hell, I whispered. You shone anyway, he said. Like obsidian in fire. The garden offered solace. We planted bluebonnet seedlings along the fence tray digging holes, Ben amending soil, me tucking roots into earth. Deep enough? Trey asked, patting dirt. For storms and droughts, Ben confirmed. Later, Trey hesitantly handed me a USB drive. Playlist. And this. The file named for Riley contained a digital sketch, Ben and me on the rooftop, Saturn's rings arcing over our silhouettes. Below, tiny letters, thanks for not leaving me broken. David's final letter arrived that week, no return address, postmarked halfway across the country. Heard you're getting married, it began. Not congratulations. You deserve better than I was. But thanks for burning my ghosts. I'm clean, staying clean, found a job fixing bikes for foster kids. Quiet life, better than I deserved. I read it aloud to Ben under the porch light. Reply? He asked. I fed the letter to our fire pit, flames licking the words quiet life. Some endings don't need sequels, I said. Chicago's conference loomed. I packed my keynote suit beside my wedding dress, ivory silk folded with clinical precision. Ben zipped his garment bag. Ready to wow the suits? Ready to marry you afterward, I countered. Trey manned the fort, Spike's dragon scale pod entrusted to him. Don't kill my cactus, I warned. He smirked. He'll be tipsy on mead and ready to party. The flight north was turbulence and tangled hands. At O'Hare, winter wind knifed through our coats. Ben tugged me toward the L train. Quick detour, he led me to the Art Institute, straight to American Gothic. Farmers, he said, grinning. Sturdy, enduring, like us. I laughed, leaning into him. You forgot, terrifyingly serious. His kiss warmed my frozen cheeks. Nah, we're the ones smiling inside. That night, in a sterile hotel room, I rehearsed my speech. Ben sprawled on the bed, sketching the skyline. Nervous? Only about tripping in heels, I deflected. He captured my hand. Remember the garage. The memory, David's betrayal, the cherry-haired stranger, no longer stabbed. Feels like someone else's life, I admitted. Because it was, he said softly. This is ours. I fell asleep to the rhythm of his pencil sketching roots beneath a city, deep and unshakable. The morning of our wedding dawned clear and cool, the kind of Texas February day that tricks bluebonnets into early dreams. I stood barefoot in Marta's sun-drenched kitchen, steam curling from Abuela Consuela's Café de Ola as she fussed with my grandmother's lace veil. Peinalo así, she instructed, weaving sprigs of rosemary into the delicate fabric. Para protección y dulzura, protection and sweetness. Outside, Walter and Trey strung popple picado between oak trees, the cut peeper flags fluttering like prayers against the blue sky. Ben's gift waited on the windowsill, a new dragon-scale pot for Spike nestled beside a handwritten note. Today I become the luckiest farm boy in Texas. P.S. Trey hid your boots so you can't run. I traced the words, the obsidian in my engagement ring catching the light, a stark contrast to the ivory silk Marta buttoned me into. Como una reina, she whispered, fastening the last clasp. Not a queen, a woman who'd stitched herself back together with garden soil and tape. The ceremony was simple. Ben stood beneath an arbor draped with Marta's embroidered shawls, boots polished, chambray shirt rolled to his elbows. Trey fidgeted beside him in a charcoal suit, clutching Spike's pot instead of a ring pillow. Best cactus duty, he'd insisted. As I walked toward them, no aisle, just dew-damp grass. Ben's breath hitched. Hey, Buchanan, he murmured, taking my hands. His palms were warm, calloused from building our life. We wrote our vows on the back of an old triage report. Riley, Ben began, voice rough. I vow to fix leaky faucets and listen when storms scare you. To plant seeds even when frost threatens. To always split the last pancake. My turn, Ben. I vow to guard your quiet mornings and fight beside you in the chaos. To let roots grow deeper than fear. And to never make you dance unless you want to. Trey snorted. Can I say ditto? Walter officiated, his beekeeping veil swapped for a bolo tie. Marriage ain't a calm sea, he declared. It's two trees grafting together, sharing sap through droughts and gales. He nodded at Ben. Kiss your wife, son. Ben's lips met mine, soft, certain as tamale steam mingled with wild grass scent. The small crowd erupted. Marta's gritos, Abuela's tearful amene. Trey's awkward fist pump. Reception blurred into joy. Mariachi trumpets soared as Ben spun me under fairy lights. Our one dance, his boots scuffing the grass. Told you I wouldn't run, I laughed into his shoulder. Knew it when you kept my dragonstone, he whispered back. We ate perched on hay bales, Marta's spicy tamales, Walter's honey-glazed ham, Abuela's tres leches cake smeared with bluebonnet petals. Trey delivered a toast-clutching Spike. Ben's my brother, Riley's my bossy angel. Y'all taught me broken engines still run. So don't screw this up. He chugged his mead, flushing crimson. Dusk painted the sky peach when Ben led me away from the laughter. We knelt by the garden's edge, our first moonflowers already unfurling luminous white trumpets near the est. Now sign. Trey repainted it this morning, Ben said, running a thumb over the fresh letters. Says it's officially inaccurate since we started forever ago. Fireflies sparked around us as I rested my head on his shoulder. Remember the motel ceiling? Counting cracks? His arm tightened. Now we count stars. A familiar rumble interrupted, Trey revving Ben's truck, our suitcases piled in the bed. Chicago flights in 5 hours. He yelled, "Get moving, newlyweds." Ben groaned. "I regret teaching him to drive." We changed in Marta's guest room, me into travel slacks, Ben into his conference suit. He pinned my clinical director badge over my heart. "Ready for your keynote, Dr. Pie Tractor." "Buchanan, ready for our honeymoon, Mr. Buchanan," I corrected. Outside, Trey manned a makeshift getaway car, Walter's vintage honey wagon, tin cans rattling behind it. "Upgraded your wheels," he grinned, tossing Ben the keys. Marta pressed tamales into our hands. Abuela tied rosemary around our wrists. "Para bendecir el viaje." Bless the journey. As we drove off, Trey sprinted alongside. "Bring me deep dish pizza. And don't do anything gross." His laughter chased us down the dirt road. At the airport, Ben paused beneath the departures board. "Nervous? About the speech?" I laced our fingers, the obsidian in our rings aligned. "After today, nothing scares me." He kissed my temple, his dragonstone warm between our collarbones. "Good, because forever starts now, wife." We boarded as the last light bled from the Texas sky, leaving bluebonnets and moonflowers behind, carrying their roots with us. Chicago's conference hall swallowed me whole, a sea of stern faces under fluorescent lights. My keynote slides glowed behind me, triage protocols for systemic collapse. Ben sat in the front row, his dragonstone visible above his collar. When I faltered describing the ransomware night, we lost digital eyes but not human hands. His subtle nod anchored me. "Vulnerability isn't failure," I concluded, voice steady. "It's the suture holding integrity together." Silence, then applause. Dr. Chen beamed. Our honeymoon was stolen hours, deep dish pizza devoured on a frigid Navy pier bench, laughter fogging the air. Trey demanded a cheese tax. Ben grinned, showing me a text. "Where's my pizza pic?" "Proof you didn't kiss too much." We obliged. A selfie with Lake Michigan's steel gray waves behind us, my director's badge still pinned to my coat. "Send him the sauciest one," I deadpanned. Ben's kiss warmed my wind-numbed lips. Already did. Back in Austin, spring exploded. Bluebonnets carpeted the hill country, and our garden surged, crimson firewheels nodding beside moonflower vines scaling the est. Now sign. Trey met us at the airport, Spike's pot tucked under his arm. "Kept him alive," he announced. "Mostly." A tiny welcome home banner hung crookedly in the cottage doorway. Life settled into deeper rhythms. Mornings, coffee with Ben on the porch swing, reviewing nurse schedules. Evenings, quizzing Trey on pharmacology while he repaired Walter's tractor. "Why is adrenaline spelled like that?" He'd groan. Ben would toss him a wrench. "Same reason tractors break, to keep us humble." My directorship faced its true test in May. A chemical spill downtown sent fumes seeping into the ear. Respiratory distress, rooms 1 through 8. A nurse shouted. I coordinated evacuations, mask fogging as I rerouted ambulances. Then triaged asthma attacks in the parking lot, Trey handing out oxygen tanks. Like the ransomware drill, Trey panted, sweat-drenched. But smellier. When the all-clear sounded, Dr. Chen pulled me aside. "You led, like you've done this forever." "Had good teachers," I said, watching Ben hoist a tank onto his shoulder. David faded to a footnote, a charity bike, a Thon flyer from his foster program, recycled unopened. Peace felt like forgetting his voice. Ben's birthday surprise unfolded at dawn. I woke him with Walter's honey on toast. Adventure day. We drove west, sunrise gilding the limestone cliffs. At Pedernales Falls, I led him blindfolded to the water's edge. "Okay, look. 2 Adirondack chairs faced the river, hand-built from cedar." Trey helped, I admitted as Ben traced the armrest's smooth curve. Walter sourced the wood. Marta sewed the cushions. His thumb brushed a carved dragon scale on the headrest. Our emergency room, he murmured. We sat as herons skimmed the water, silence weaving around us like a second skin. Remember the motel? He asked, counting ceiling cracks. I laced our fingers. Now we count currents. Trey's high school graduation arrived in a blur of maroon gowns and wilted heat. He scowled through speeches until they called Trayvon Hayes. Ben whooped. I snapped photos as he crossed the stage, a nursing acceptance letter clutched in his hand. Afterward, he thrust his diploma at us. Don't cry, it's embarrassing. Ben ruffled his hair. Proud of you, kid. Trey's hug was brief, fierce. Wouldn't be here without y'all's nagging. That night, we barbecued under fairy lights. Walter presented Trey with a beekeeping veil. For focus. Marta hung a Milagro heart charm around his neck. For when nursing breaks yours. Ben handed him a toolbox vintage, farm issue. For fixing what matters. I saved my gift for last, a stethoscope engraved Trey Hayes R&D. He fastened it around his neck instantly, bell pressed to Spike's pot. Hear anything? Ben teased. Silent judgment, Trey shot back. His smile lingered as fireworks boomed over the lake. Later, I found Ben by the moonflowers. Saturn glimmered through his telescope. Roots deep enough? He asked, pulling me close. Below, Trey slow danced with Abuela Consuela on the patio, her laughter blending with mariachi music. I touched the obsidian in my ring, the dragon scale at my neck. Deep enough for lifetimes, I whispered. In our bedroom, Ben's sketch journal lay open. I added the final entries, keynote applause reflecting in Ben's eyes, Trey's stethoscope catching graduation fireworks, cedar chairs by the river at dawn. No more cracks to count. Only whole, unbroken light.